Hi, how's it going? It's Kyra here, and in today's video, I wanted to share my experience going to the Bellevue Star Wars Unlimited Planetary Qualifier for anyone who might be thinking about going to an event like this, especially if you're like me and enjoy competitive card games but are new to actually going to an event or have never actually gone to an event before. This is all still pretty new to me, and I thought it might be helpful to share what it's been like. This is my third competitive event so far. I've previously been to two of these sector qualifiers in Denver and Portland, but never a planetary qualifier. So coming into this, I've gotten the 500 person tournament experience, which totally feels like skipping a step. So was curious on how competitive this lower tier tournament would be. I know not all PQs are created equal with how wide the variance in turnout can be, but this one was very competitive. It almost maxed out at 111 of the possible 128 players, and I recognized quite a few people from the recent sector in Portland that placed well at that tournament. So I was excited to take the lessons I learned from that Portland sector and apply them to this event with the hope of getting entry to the Galactic Championship, which you need a win, but that's the whole point of competing. I wanted to start off with a shout out to the community because when I look back on the event, the biggest positive for me is just how awesome the community is. Even though these are competitive events, that hasn't stopped everyone I've played so far from being genuinely great people. Maybe I'm just a bit pessimistic because of my experiences in online games like League of Legends, but I really didn't expect people to be this cool in tournaments while competing. It's also been awesome seeing a lot of the same faces at big events that are relatively close together and actually being able to make friends with people of the community who share the same passions I do when it comes to this game. I also wanted to bring that up for people that are new to competing, that this is genuinely a welcoming community of full of nice people, even in the most sweaty areas of this game. The venue couldn't have been better. It's the coolest board game shop I've ever been to. It's called Mox Boarding House in Bellevue, and for a 100-person tournament, it didn't feel too cramped when actually competing. In other events such as Denver and Portland, they're in that kind of convention center area with these tables, and they would have to combine them together, and then it was just like very clunky and kind of cumbersome. The tables at this one were a little nicer. Yes, they're not having to house 500 plus people, but at the same time, for an event like this, I thought it was a good middle ground of like expectations versus like kind of like a realistic setting there where it's still kind of cramped, but significantly better than other places I've been to, but not terrible. Whereas the thing that was actually really clutch though is there was a built-in restaurant, which was perfect for like 7+ round event. Being able to have food on hand is fantastic when you're normally like at Denver, for example. That was a massive problem because like getting out of the convention center was a big pain in the ass. Super far from any food, no food on there at all. So a lot of people had big complaints there. Portland wasn't too big of a deal, and this one is like the ultimate like amazing situation that I didn't even think was possible. Like bar right there, food right there, which is like the perfect scenario for an event like this. Okay, so this was the list I brought. Bring up some of the spicy picks in here. I want to talk about the things that ran really well that I thought were overperformed, and then some of the things that I thought were at least lessons I learned, I guess, or things that weren't necessarily as good as I thought they were. So the two spicy picks were not my idea. These were inspiration from a guy that top aided at the regional. I want to say about a week before this PQ. And it's the Avengers in the sideboard for grindier matchups, and then also the Jedi lightsabers. And I would say these were insane. I could imagine this being a real mirror buster, being able to break open a turret, for example. You slap this on Itinerant Warrior after they play turret, think they're safe, and you can just destroy them. Breaking through and being able to trade really well against Yoda was awesome. Like he visibly was upset when I played this card. I thought that was awesome. Another thing that really overperformed this weekend was Cassian. So triple Cassian. There were so many grinding matchups facing two Kiras and that Yoda player. They all noticeably got frustrated after like the third Cassian was played to be able to have another unit on board and be able to push damage on that same turn. I thought that was clutch. Avenger, actually, I was able to do it twice. So I did it against a Kira player. It didn't end up winning that matchup. That was one where he ended up decking me out in, but I thought it was kind of nice. Whereas the one that actually won me the game was against game 2 against the Yoda player, being able to drop this. He had a board of, it was right on that moment where the match is going to flip in his favor, where he was able to home one, Kelleran another unit, but being able to already have a Avenger on board, was able to like fell the dragon, the Kellerin, attack and kill the smaller unit, attack base for Avenger, kill his home one, really shut the door on him. Whereas most of the time when I didn't have this, like that is the moment where it's like I'm going to lose, go to game 3 kind of thing. But luckily having this kind of crazy unique tech in there was clutch in that particular scenario. One of the overarching things I kind of learned this weekend that I didn't like was just how relevant Crate Dragon was, and how the variance of do you draw the Crate Dragon or not in a lot of matchups. Because a lot of times you're trying to push through that little extra damage. Like the whole point of the deck is, or like at least the game plan against like Kira, for example, is apply enough pressure, keep 2 units on the board at all times while keeping pressure, and then shut the door on them with Crate Dragon. And if you just don't draw a Crate Dragon, the game could just extend for forever long. And even with triple Crate Dragon, I had a situation where I drew a game because for digging with like multiple draws of Kiadi here, couldn't draw a Crate Dragon for the life of me. Ended up having to draw the match in game 3 versus a Kira, and then I go to the Yoda player, win that 2-0, and he asked me like, "Do you have Crate Dragons?" Like that's like the level of like, and so it was just unlucky. You man, I know it's variance. It is what it is. It's only 2 games, very small sample size, but it's just frustrating like having to get there. I am very excited because of this. I'm excited for aggressive negotiations in this deck. I think it's going to make a massive difference by being able to represent more reach in other units that are not just like their printed stats. So like I could drop, for example, like Owen Lars plus a unit, and then Owen Lars is giving me the double benefit of being a Power of the Dark Side blocker, but also representing a ton of damage if I have a big hand. For example, I think that's going to be a really much needed, addition to this deck. It was one of the flaws of it, in my opinion. So even though I think aggressive negotiations overall, I wish they didn't print, but that's beside the point. I would say another big lesson I learned because I drew versus both those Kiras is the game state against Kira could get so complicated in this deck. Like I would in playing it online is probably a lot easier, but when you get to deep in the tournament, it's like 40 minutes into a match. You have pressure of like wanting to, you're trying to like close them out and make sure you don't go to time. But you have like 10 cards in hand, multiple cards on board. You got to figure out like what threats are in their deck that are still left, like counting their Power of the Dark Sides, counting their like evaders and avengers and all that stuff. Having that all in your head, I was like, wow, this is actually incredibly complicated. And when the pressure of the tournament is on the line and like these are like there's no go next or anything like that, it's like this is it made me realize just how much more preparation I need to have if I'm going to realistically like do well at these events. I'm going against a guy that top aided in the sector, so like these are great players, and so like them making hard decisions on me is expected, but at the same time it was like, wow, I didn't realize just how complicated the board state can get. I'm just playing purely on vibes at that point, just trying to play in a reasonable amount of time to be able to hopefully close out the match. I thought that was something that was just like an interesting insight of like going to these events and realizing like, oh, like this can actually get pretty tough. Okay, so that's pretty much the deck here. Love to see the tech choices, how they play out in actual, like when there's actual stakes on the line here. And I would say for the most part, it did really well. A lot of the issues just came down to myself and needing to get better at the game. And so, one thing I didn't mention is that just learning the lesson of Cham. I feel like Cham, especially in this particular deck, is just so good in a very niche time. Like every time I've tried to play Cham, I'm curious what you guys think, if you guys have had experience with this, is that the only time I found Cham to be good was if I can force a flip turn a turn early from it. Like they ramp and then I get Cham and slam him and then be able to flip Han a turn early, then it's great. Any other scenario, Cham feels lacking. And so it's still, I like to represent the threat. I like them to have to make hard decisions. And if they're going to ramp, they have to worry about Cham. But that's the only time that I felt like I actually win the game from that. I didn't get a play against a Cad Bane. I wish I did, because like I've practiced against that matchup a lot. I know it's a tough matchup, but I wanted to just see that in a, against a good player. I want to see how I did there, but didn't get a shot to do that. But overall, I think the deck went really well. Was really happy to see just how good the Jedi lightsaber did, and it was fun to be able to kind of splash in something that was unexpected in Avenger. Okay, matchup wise, started with Kazuda, was a 2-0, very close, really narrow margins in these, hero space aggro decks. Definitely not a deck I was excited to play against. I think, especially at this time before set 6 came out, this is just kind of an archetype that I would kind of lump in together. You'd have the Han 4, you'd have Kazuda, you'd also have kind of like the like Wedge, for example, but you wouldn't see that too often, and like Vader 4, even though it's kind of a different vibe. But came down to like between one action both times. I think game 1 I had him with it without it being too stressful, but game 2, that one was like, if he had the hotshot maneuver, I think it was lethal for him. But having enough board counted it out. I was just trying to use like a mental heuristic to like, because there's so much going on, it's so hard to calculate everything. So I just like counted everything out. I had perfect lethal. All I had to do was survive. Had multiple things like a Yaddle and a Owen to be able to heal up. And then I just got there and was able to hit for 27 from like with a Cassian from row or something like that. So super tight game. Good player, but it's just one of those matchups that ends quick and usually a few actions between the two. So next up was Boba 4. This is by far like the worst matchup for me, or worst I played during this whole event. Whereas Boba 4 is a deck that I played a ton of, super confident into it. I feel like I'm massively favored in this matchup. I did learn a lot of lessons into this by losing this. The matchup was kind of weird, where it was like he double ramped both games. I just had clunky hands. I think like the big lesson I learned from this is just I mulliganed too safe and didn't go for the win. There's certain matchups where like I also think it spoke to like a lack of preparation, where it was like I just got too cocky. Especially in this matchup, like I just feel like it's so favored in Hantu's favor. I also feel like I don't understand why people are even giving Boba 4 a shot, because it's like, just maybe nowadays in set 6 it's significantly better, but like at the time it's just like, it's so, all the data shows that this deck is not a winnable deck. Play it online, I play against other people, win a ton, but it just didn't work out in the event. I look back on like my confidence against other decks like Han1 Green, for example. I'm just like so much more prepared versus something like that than this, and I just think I don't know, it was just a good lesson to learn. Like it sucked, like I had to like leave the venue, walk around for a bit, but like that's just part of competing, and being able to actually like have to experience that in competition, I thought was probably good for me, but at the same time sucked at the time. But good player. He played it well. So, but yeah, this was like my low point of the tournament. And then next up was Kira, and then this what ended up being a draw. I want to say this one was frustrating because it was like, I think he got game 1, I got game 2, and then game 3 I was just digging for a crate. I had him close to like like within 4 points of lethal. Needed the crate to close it out. This makes me really like that aggressive negotiations is a card, because that would have got me there. Any crate dragon would have got me there. And then it went to time, we just drew. Next is Yoda. This was a good matchup. I think this is a, oh no, it wasn't Yoda. It was Rey. So I played against a Rey Data Vault. I feel like this is a matchup you're pretty favored in. Go wide, trade with their board, don't let them gain value, and close them out. It's just kind of the strategy I went with there, and then ended up getting it 2-0. Thrawn Data Vault, this is one I was a little worried about. Didn't get much preparation against this deck. Thrawn Data Vault with roughly the same strategy as Yoda. Kind of develop a board, trade it with their units, but like mainly trying to put as much pressure as possible, close them out with Great Dragon. Was able to get there. Then we had Kira, another draw. This guy actually top 8'd at the sector. Great player. Got him game 1. Game 2, it went down to milled me out. Couldn't find, I think I found the Crate Dragons and stuff. It's just, I think he just had control. This matchup made me realize just how much more preparation I need in this particular matchup to prevent these draws. Like with Kira, in the first one went to a draw, and then this one, I can't control how fast they play, but I can control my preparation on like what lines I should take. But I think the main thing realizing is just how complicated the game state can be with like 8+ cards in hand, board state, figuring out their board. I think could have been shitty and like played slow and then like won 1-0, but I didn't want to do that. But it just made me realize just like how many decisions I need to make. I was just trying to kind of playing through vibes. I would rather have a lot more preparation and be able to play out those lines that get really complicated. Because I think that's going to be the difference between, drawing with a guy and actually taking it down. And then lastly, Han1 Green. This is like probably I have a good friend that I play a ton of. He plays a lot of Han1 Green, practices matchup a ton going to this event. So it was super rewarding being able to like 2-0 this guy. All the preparation really paid off. I have this like, I think this great line against Han1 Green where it's like force unit, turret for cheaper, and then Poe. And if you can get that line, it's incredibly difficult for the Han1 Green player to win. Like if you know that I'm going to do that, and maybe it gets a little hairy depending on how many sevens they draw and stuff like that, but usually you can close them out pretty easily with that draw. I know maybe it's different nowadays with the new meta in set 6, but that was what I was going for. That's what I got both games, and it was like a very swift 2-0. So that at least felt good. I wasn't going to get top 8 at that point. After drawing with the Kira, it was pretty much a wrap. I guaranteed not going to top 8, but or I should say drawing with the second Kira locked me out of that. But there was some bittersweet moments there where it was like a really devastating loss against Boba 4, but a lot of encouraging play versus like good players, like proven players that have topped and done well, and like having success against them. So it was very bittersweet, but very glad to actually compete against these people. Okay, so final thoughts on the event. Really happy I went, really happy I competed. Still over my actual performance itself. A lot of lessons learned, but at the same time, like that's the whole point of going to these events. Like I love the idea of prepping for something and then seeing just how well that preparation actually paid off. And I think like just learning like what to prepare for going forward for the events in the future. I think so. From Alaska, flying to a PQ is actually like a really big deal. So like even going from, this is the easiest one I can go to, and it's still like $300 minimum in a day trip. Like I flew out at midnight, landed at 5, got there, flew out at 11, didn't want to take a hotel or anything like that, just did it all in one day, and then had work the next day. So was able to dodge PTO as well. So it was like a perfect like day trip scenario. But even in that scenario, even with planning in the future, it's still incredibly expensive. Whereas like I think in the future, I'm going to be focusing on like the sectors and regionals, because they got the packs you can potentially sell. Yes, you got to get a hotel, but it's like more fun to like go out for a few days, bigger event. Like you only need a top 8 if you're trying to get into Galactics, which I'm trying to get to. Like I think that's my main goal I'm trying to go for. So going forward, I'm probably not going to go to PQs, which is a big bummer, because a lot of people that are down on the west side or the east side get to go to like 4 of them, and they're just driving distance. So, it's one of the things that's, unfortunate living up in Alaska here for this particular thing. But probably going to be focusing on online tournaments until then. But super cool. Love the PQ scene. Wish we had more. Like it just makes me want a bigger scene up here in Alaska as well. But super glad I went, even though I totally think it's just like absolutely punting money if I wanted to keep going to something like this. That's my video. That was my experience. Gonna call it here. You guys have a good one. Peace.